Welcome to today's lecture on intermediate algebra. Today we're going to look at factoring trinomials when a is greater than 1. When a is greater than 1, then we are going to have ax squared plus bx plus c, and we're going to want to factor that. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get this in the first. We're going to want to get our c in the last, and we're going to want to get our b's in the inner, the sum of the inner and the outer. Now it's a little more complicated because we've got this coefficient of a in front of our x squared, so we can't just find the factors of c to figure out what's going to go on the second half of our binomials. So with this, we're going to take the product of AC and we're going to factor that. So we're going to take our A times C and then we're going to find all of those factors. And what we're looking for is when I factor it, we're going to say that's going to end up being, we'll call it B1 and B2, because what we want is we want these two numbers, when I multiply them together, it's going to equal A times C, and when I add them together, it's going to give me my B. So this is going to multiply together to give me my B1 and my B2. Now I have to figure out what to do with the A and the C. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor my A and I'm going to factor my C. And let's just say we're going to choose factors C1 and C2. And we're going to choose factors A1 and A2. So we want, when we multiply these together, we want to end up with B1 and B2. So that tells me I'm going to use, when I take one factor of A and multiply it by the factor of C, that's going to give me my B1 and B2. So, and this might, just using the letters, this might sound a little confusing. So what that's going to give me is that's going to give me A1x, A2x, plus my C1 and my C2. So then when I multiply all of these together, that's going to give me A1x times A2x, and when I multiply that together, that's going to give me my AX squared. And when I multiply my C's together, C1 times C2 together, that's going to give me my C. And then for my B's, when I multiply my A1x times C2, that's going to give me my b2x. And when I multiply my c1 times a2x, that's going to give me my b1. And then when I add these together, that's going to give me my b. So this may look like it's a little more complicated, but if you're using this AC rule, it's going to make it a lot easier, and we're going to look at a couple of examples. Okay, so let's look at an example of when a is greater than 1. So that's going to have the formula of ax squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to use the AC formula of factoring to help bring that trinomial down into binomials. So let's look at our first example. If I have the equations 6x squared plus 7x plus 2, and I want to break this down factor it down into binomials, I have a 6 instead of a 1 in front of that x squared. So that tells me that I'm going to need to multiply that coefficient, the coefficient of a, times the coefficient of c. So that's going to give me my 6 times 2, which equals 12. So I'm going to find the factors of 12, and that's 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Now what I'm looking for is what two numbers multiplied together give me 2. So all of these pairs are going to give me 12. And I want to know which of these, when I add them together, are going to give me 7. So I see that when I add 3 plus 4 together, that's going to equal 7. So I've got that 3 plus 4 equals 7, and 3 times 4 equals 12. So it meets my criteria. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to factor my a and my c. So I'm going to take my 6 and I'm going to factor that. 1 and 6, 2 and I'm going to factor my c, which is a 2, which has the factors 1 and 2. Now 2 only has one factor, so that makes it real easy. I already know I'm going to be 1 in the 2. Now I just need to look to see, am I going to use the 1 and the 6 or the 2 and the 3? The way that I determine that is I'm going to the factors that I found with my AC, that 3 and that 4, and what I need is I need one factor to multiply one factor of my C to get each of those numbers. So in order to do that, that tells me I'm going to want to use my 2 and 3. Multiply the 3 by the 1. I'm going to get 3. When I multiply 2 by 2, I'm going to get a 4. That A and my C. I'm going to X and A for my C. I'm going to want to make sure that they're paired together so that when I do my inner and outer, they're going to give me my 3 and my 4. So now I'm going to double check. I've got my, when I do my first numbers together, That's going to give me 6x squared. When I do the last numbers together, that's going to give me my c, my 2. Now I'm going to check for my middle numbers. When I do the outer numbers, that's going to give me a 3x. When I do the inner numbers, that's going to give me my 4x. What we were looking for was that add these together, that's going to give me my 7x. And I see that I have my equation. So that tells me that when I'm solving for my binomial factors, that my answer is going to be 3x plus 2 times 2x plus 1. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, so once again, we're greater than 1, which means we have formula ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to have the problem 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. So notice that our signs are different, so that's going to change our problem just a little bit. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We notice we have our a isn't 1, so that tells us we need to multiply our a times c together and get that factor. So a times c is going to give me 2 times a minus 4, which is going to be a minus 8. We're going to get those factors. So that's 1 and 8, 2 and 4. And now we want those factors that when we add them up are going to end up giving us a positive 7. So that tells me I can put a minus 1 in front of, a minus in front of the 1, and the 8 is going to give me my factors. So minus 1 times 8 equals minus 8. That satisfies the multiplication. Minus 1 plus 8 equals a positive 7. So that tells me I've chosen the correct factors. Now I'm going to factor my a and my c. So a has a factor of 2, and that just has the factors of 1 and 2, so that's easy. We know we're going to be using those two numbers. And then we're going to do the factor of a minus 4. So that's 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. So now we're going to, we need to match them up with that 1 and the 8. So we know that we want them, when we multiply them together, one of them is going to equal a minus 1, and the other is going to multiply together to give me a positive 8. So if I'm going to have, so I already know I'm going to have the 1 and the 2. And then I want to look at, from my c, what do I need to multiply by in order to get that minus 1 and that 8? And that tells me I'm going to get the 1 and the 4, and I'm going to put my minus in front of that 1. So that's going to be a minus 1 and a positive 4. So 1 times minus 1 is a negative 1. 2 times 4 is a positive 8. So now we can put those numbers into our binomials. So first I'm going to write down my a's. that's going to be 1x and a 2x for my A's. And for my C's, I'm going to have a -1. Make sure that when you multiply them together, they're in the right order. So that's going to be a -1 here and a +4 here. So now let's double check that we put those correct. X times, I'm going to times 2x is going to give me a 2x squared. Then I'm going to do the last. 4 times a -1 is going to give me a -4. Then I'm going to do my outer and inner. X times a -1 is going to give me a -x. Plus 4 times 2x is going to give me an 8x. Then I'm going to add these together, and that's going to give me a 7x. So I've ended up with my original equation, so that tells me that my binomial factors are going to be x plus 4 and 2x minus 1. So just to review, that when your a is greater than 1, then you're going to multiply the coefficient on your a times the coefficient of your c. You're going to get those factors, and you want those factors to, when you add them up, it's going to equal your b. Then you're going to set each of those factors that you just found, and then when you factor your a and your c, when you multiply one of the a's times one of the c's, you want each of those to end up with those factors that you just found. Okay, that should be everything you should need to know in order to factor trinomials. Thanks for watching. See the links below for additional supports and resources. Be sure to like and subscribe to get the latest videos from Caz Academy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.